Hello and welcome. If this is your first time with us, thank you for stopping by. You're listening to Choose to Endure, the show dedicated to the non-elite runners, where we share stories, interviews, gear, and tips specific to the tail-end heroes of the ultra running universe. If you haven't had a moment to do so yet, please consider heading over to your favorite podcast app, hit follow, rate the show, and if you're getting something of value, definitely feel free to leave us a review too. My name is Richard Gleave. I've been running ultras now since 2017. I have taken on and finished numerous ultra distances all the way up through 220 miles. And I am unashamedly a member of the back of the pack, just like you are. Now, do you struggle with sleep in your day-to-day life or as part of training, racing, and recovery? How often have you heard that sleep is a really important part of training? Are you interested in learning how to get better, more restorative sleep, especially as it might relate to athletic performance? Well, you're in luck then, because in the studio with me today, I am joined by sleep expert and author Amanda Chocko. Amanda is not only a nutritional therapy practitioner and sleep coach, but also the author of the best-selling book, Relax, Sleep, Thrive, Your 5-Week Journey to Peaceful Restorative Sleep. After years of struggling with her own chronic insomnia, Amanda turned her personal challenges into a professional quest, uncovering the deep ties between nutrition, sleep, and overall wellness. Her book is a culmination of this journey, offering you and I a roadmap to conquering our sleep challenges just like she did. And today, she's going to share with us how pivotal quality sleep can be for athletic performance, especially for endurance athletes who are looking to push their limits day and night like us. So stay right where you are. We'll be right back, quicker than a rabbit in a carrot race.
Discover raw, inspiring stories from runners who've been right where you are. This is the Choose to Endure Ultra Running Podcast. With your host,
he's English, not Australian,
Richard Gleave.
Amanda, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for sparing a little bit of your time to talk with us today. How are you doing?
Great, Richard. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here to talk all about sleep.
Sleep, yes, exactly. Now, in the book, which you were kind enough to send me a copy of, you definitely start off by talking just in general terms about the impact of sleep and specifically the consequences of not getting enough of it, just in general and also from our perspective as athletes. Can you start by helping us understand why sleep is so critical, generally speaking, and potentially, especially for endurance athletes from a recovery and performance standpoint?
Yeah, for sure. Well, sleep is hugely important to, as I said, everyone in general, but particularly if you're an athlete, especially an ultra athlete, because of how hard it is on your body and even mentally, right? It's such a mental game. And there's a lot of magical things that happen while we sleep, directly associated with the benefits and the consequences of not getting enough sleep. So in our deep sleep, that's when our muscles repair, our tissues repair, all of our hormones, including our growth hormone, is secreted, along with our hunger hormones, our blood sugar, our insulin, our sex hormones. That's when our immune system is regulated. And all of those play into everyday life, let alone athletic performance. And then, of course, during REM sleep, that's when all of our cognitive things happen, where we consolidate memories and regulate our worries and mindset. And so just the whole thing, plays into really functioning on a daily basis. So after one night of bad sleep, you could find yourself walking around with brain fog, not feeling as motivated as you would like to be.
Yeah.
You might be more hungry than usual and more apt to make poorer food choices. Your memory's going to suffer for that. You're going to have moodiness. And then if you have chronic sleep issues, that could all manifest into chronic conditions like type 2 diabetes, depression, neurological disorders. So the list goes on. So there are a lot of great things that happen during sleep, but there's also a lot of things that can go wrong if you're not getting enough sleep.
Absolutely, yeah. Now, as back of the pack, slower ultra runners who might be out there for a while, we do tend to find ourselves running through the night on longer races. Is there a way that we can look to adjust our sleep schedule in the weeks leading up to an event to better cope with the sleep deprivation through the event itself? Are there any strategies you might recommend for kind of managing this sleep deprivation? Because we hear a lot about, hey, bank some sleep before the event. And I don't know if that's a real thing or not, but it's definitely out there as a strategy. I don't know if that works or is really a non-event, but yeah, what kind of strategies might there be for adjusting our schedules in advance of races? And then how might we manage the actual deprivation during a race when we have to do it?
Yeah, I can see where that could be very challenging. Well, during your training, it's really important to get on a regular sleep schedule. And 7 to 9 hours is what the average person needs. And it could be bio-individual. So really listening to your body. But then when you're thinking through, what is that race going to actually look like? Are you going to be getting up 2 hours sooner than you would normally do, during your day-to-day life? So you're really thinking through, how can you gradually, in the weeks, leading up to the race, begin to adjust your schedule to train your body and your circadian rhythms to be more in sync with what that might be. You also might think about if you're tapering at that time and you have more time in your schedule, some people benefit by adding 30 to 60 minutes to their sleep schedule to begin banking up that extra sleep resilience. But again, you want to be careful, not to throw your own sleep rhythms off too much. And also, making sure you're still getting the right amount of rest that you need for just your recovery from what you've been going through during training.
Yeah, and I've always wondered too, and maybe you can help us out with this, is it possible to practice or train for sleep deprivation? Or do we have to take each night as it comes and it sort of resets? And talking about the circadian rhythms, like, does it reset every night and we can go? Or do you feel like there is a possibility to train for sleep deprivation?
Well, I think you could potentially train your body to say, well, if you're going to do some night running or anything like that, where you can do that kind of training and see how your sleep regulates. But I think, if I had to balance getting regular, consistent, quality sleep with experimenting and maybe throwing that off where you're not able to get that sleep, I'm not sure how much you would want to do that.
Yeah.
And then also you can't plan for everything, right? I mean, you could have everything, I'm sure, as you know, planned out, food and when you're going to rest and, when all these things are going to happen. And then all of a sudden that day, all those things go out the window. So I think just being in the best shape that you possibly can. And then if you're planning on taking those rest breaks or short power naps or anything like that through the race, if you know the route well enough, if you know where there's going to be certain points in time where you're going to choose to rest or have a really challenging part of the race that you'll need to recover from. So if you know enough about what you're going to be dealing with in advance, you could try to plan out on what that might look like for you.
Yeah. And so now, given that many of us do have to try to juggle our training with full-time jobs and other family commitments, is there any advice you can offer us as far as integrating effective sleep practices amidst busy life schedules? How do we go about, you're talking about, hey, just get the best sleep you can. How do we go about doing that?
Yeah, this is a tricky one. It's not only ultra runners that deal with this, right? I mean, a lot of people
for sure.
have so much to juggle in their lives. And then you get to the evening and you're like, wow, this is the only time I have to myself. This is my TV time, or this is, whatever you plan on doing. So I think it's a matter of prioritizing. There might be some things that you look at all the things that you do in the day from week to week that you might decide to put on the side during that time. So, family obviously would most likely come first to making sure you have that family time. But trying not to be that much of a superhuman that you're trying to cram all of these things in. Because it's really important, when it comes to sleep for anyone, is to get on a regular sleep schedule.
Right.
And really have that time in the evening when you're winding down. And we could talk about all the different techniques to help you get up to the point where your body just is ready for sleep. It's expecting it, and it'll make it much easier for you to fall asleep and have a good night's sleep. So you still want to make sure you're factoring that in as you're trying to juggle everything else along with that.
Yeah, definitely. In the book, I think I recall you were talking about making sure your environment is set up to wind you down at the end of a day. And I think you talk about light was one of the things you mentioned, which was, if it's not a pun, a light bulb moment for me, but the artificial light and dialing that down and creating the kind of low light environment, which helps kickstart, was it the melatonin kind of coming in? Yeah. So how would we go about, especially if when we travel for racing, we may be in a hotel or we may be in somewhere that's not our home environment. How do we go about setting up an environment that's sort of conducive, at least to pushing us in the direction of sleep, especially right before a race?
Yes. So you're absolutely right. Light plays a huge factor from when we wake up in the morning and getting that early sunlight to help start to set our circadian rhythms. That's when our cortisol should be its highest. And then throughout the day, as the sun begins to set, that's when our melatonin begins to kick in to help us sleep. And that is secreted by our pituitary gland in darkness. So you want it to be as dark as possible. So things that you can do to help with that is, whether you're home or you're away, dimming the lights, maybe an hour or so before bed. Try to ditch your screens, not looking at your phone and getting that blue light in your eyes. You want to make, when you go to sleep, your room as dark and cool as you can, because it's really important for your body temperature to come down a couple of degrees for sleep. Some people wear blue light blocking glasses. I'm one of those people. And if you do want to read your phone or watch TV, read a Kindle, if that's something that relaxes you, having those blue light blocking glasses could help. But when it is time for you to go to sleep, if you don't have a fully dark environment where you're at, sleep masks really help with that as well.
Yes.
Investing in a sleep mask. There are some people I've heard that travel and they can't block the light from the window, so they actually find extra sheets and blankets and hang those up to make the room as dark as possible if you're in a hotel room. And then if you're going to a different time zone, that could also be a challenge as well. Yeah. That's where you're racing.
And I think even towards the end of the book, you were talking about white noise and weighted blankets helping out, sort of just trying to create the environment, I guess, to where it's more conducive to sleep.
Yes, there's a lot of science behind weighted blankets and just having that pressure on our bodies. Think of a baby in a swaddle that gets relaxed and stops crying once that swaddle's on. Same thing is with adults as well. So when you're home, having a weighted blanket can really help with that. You might not want to travel with your weighted blanket. They're like 15, 20 pounds with everything else that you're packing. Might not be convenient. But one thing that I do that's really helpful in those situations is I take a pillow and just resting that pillow across my abdomen or up near my chest just puts enough pressure and weight that is really relaxing as well. White noise is also something that could be very relaxing. There's white noise, there's pink noise, brown noise, green noise. There's all colors of noise, and they're different frequencies that you really have to experiment them to see what works for you. Binaural beats. There are all kinds of apps that have nature sounds and these types of sounds that could be very relaxing. So having headphones that are comfortable. There are headphones that are actually have sleep masks, or they're almost like headbands.
Oh, right.
In case you don't like sleeping on your headphones. So those could be very helpful as well.
Yeah. Now, talking of pre-race and really just training in general, living life, it's pretty stressful. It creates a lot of anxiety. And I think that's one of the, if I'm quoting the book right, sleep stealers that really stop us from getting a good night's sleep. And I really loved some of the items you've put in here on how to address the anxiety and stress and how to tackle the mind to help sleep. And I don't know if you're able to step, because this one really spoke to me, but you talk about making sure you write out to-do lists. And then this one I thought was great, a worry list, and then schedule some worry time. Can you go into a little bit of detail about that for folks listening? Because I thought this was fantastic, and I can very much imagine myself doing this as part of training and pre-race for sure, worrying about what's coming the next day.
Yeah, absolutely. Usually when people come to me with sleep issues, stress and an overactive mind are some of the top complaints, whether it's worrying so much that they can't fall asleep or waking in the middle of the night and their brain turns on and they can't get back to sleep. And that's something that I dealt with when I was having my insomnia. So when you're thinking about your bedtime routine, and we talked about, having that wind down routine in the evening, starting to get relaxed and removing the lights and stopping working and all of those things. Part of that routine could be something like journaling, to-do lists, worry lists. And these are all things that kind of get all of the thoughts and worries and anxieties that you have in your head out of your mind and onto paper. So one of those is a worry list, as you were just referring to, and then a designated worry time. So the thing that's bothering you, anxiety about the race or anything else that might be going on through your mind, is to jot those down and tell yourself, I am not going to solve this right now. And I am going to be so much better off if I get a good night's sleep to be able to deal with these worries, that I'm going to designate a worry time tomorrow for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, to address these thoughts and think of either, am I going to problem solve them, or are they things that I'm just blowing out of proportion? So often the things seem so much worse at night, and then we wake up the next day and it's really not as bad as we thought it was going to be. Say, I'm going to just table this till tomorrow and then start thinking through these things so I can get them out of my head tonight.
I really love that concept, and it works mid-race too, actually. But I love it. Yeah. Just kind of get that stuff out of your head and give it a time and space to worry about it and find a solution, and not have it dominate your present moment and really steal the time that you're in right now. And I love that, and I'm definitely going to try that one.
Yeah. There's another little trick. I don't know if I mentioned it in the book or not. So my worries were always my kids. Make me worry.
Yes.
They're adults, still make me worry. I have one son, he's an adventurer. He's jumping off cliffs. He's doing all kinds of crazy things. He travels all over the world, always worrying. So I would be texting him all the time just to make sure he was alive. And I would end all of my texts with #worrier. So he knows that I'm thinking. So he said something really that made me think and really changed just the way I think about these things. And he said, change your O to an A, #worrier.
Oh.
So every time I start getting anxiety or I'm worrying about something in the future, something's going to happen, I'm not going to be able to handle it, I just say to myself, #worrier, that no matter what it is, I'm going to get through it and it's going to be okay. Otherwise, I could just drive myself insane. So that's been like a little mantra of mine when I get into those states of mind, and I write that down as well.
That's brilliant. I love that. I'm definitely going to steal that if you're okay with it.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Be my guest.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Now, one of the other things you get into to some degree in the book here is nutrition, what you put into your body, and that's going to affect the output from a sleep perspective.
Yeah.
So are there foods you might recommend, or what might you recommend to enhance our sleep quality, but also that we should probably try to stay away from if we can, that would not be good for our sleep?
Yeah, nutrition is very important when it comes to sleep, and having as close as you can to a whole food, nutrient-dense diet is something I recommend for everybody. Because if you have certain nutrient deficiencies, it could impact your sleep as well. And then you want those macronutrients. You need that protein, right? That's what's going to help with your tissue repair and building back your muscles and, those complex carbohydrates that are going to help restore your glycogen and give you that energy that you need to get through a race or sleep. It's good for sleep as well. So really thinking about having those types of foods. Sweet potatoes, I think, are a great complex carbohydrate to add both for running as well as, when you're thinking about nutrition for sleep. Tryptophan is something that is noted to help. It's a precursor to serotonin and melatonin. So foods that are high in tryptophan could be helpful. So everybody, thinks about that Thanksgiving meal.
Yeah, your turkey, right? Yeah.
Yeah, where everybody's on the couch. Now, some of that may be because we eat a ton of food.
Quite possibly, yeah.
Trying to process all of it. But turkey, nuts and seeds, eggs, protein, they all have tryptophan in them. So they're good. It's really important for a good sleep to finish that meal a couple of hours before you go to bed. This way, your body isn't trying to digest all that food. You don't have to worry about stomach upset, things that might keep you up at night. Also, digestion raises our body temperature. And then again, as we talked about earlier, we want that to lower. But if you do want to have a snack before you go to bed, sometimes some yogurt, Greek yogurt, plain cottage cheese, those all have the protein and the tryptophan as well that can help you to go to sleep.
And what kind of stuff would we stay away from?
Yes, I think when it comes to sleep and probably training and racing as well, staying away from artificial, highly processed foods is something that is recommended because there's so many additives and chemicals that our bodies don't recognize that we can have a reaction to. So, you want to really avoid those to avoid having food sensitivities, because if you have a food sensitivity or reaction to something that you've eaten, that's going to raise your cortisol, it's going to raise your heart rate, and it's going to be something that's going to be disruptive to your sleep. So you want to stay away from artificial colorings, flavorings, and processed foods in general. Eating foods that are very spicy isn't always recommended before bed. That also can heat up your body, give you gastrointestinal issues. It can rev you up as well. Alcohol is something that is super disruptive to sleep. Relaxing with a glass of wine is something that I used to enjoy at the end of the day, but
yeah.
And it is a sedative. It will help you fall asleep, but it has a rebound effect once it processes through our liver. And that might be one of those things that's going to wake you up in the middle of the night, or certainly mess with your sleep cycles, and you may not feel as refreshed the next day as you need to be, especially if you're going to be training or in that race. Caffeine, really watching the timing of your caffeine is important. Caffeine could be great to help you during the race to get through those times where you may get tired. But when you're training, having caffeine too late in the day, caffeine has a half-life of 8 to 10 hours. So it could still be in your system. Wow. So it's a stimulant, right? So obviously it's going to mess with your sleep, but it's also just something. We have another chemical that's secreted in our brains. It's called adenosine. And that's what builds up our sleep pressure throughout the day. So the longer you're awake, that sleep pressure builds up, and caffeine blocks the receptors for adenosine, depending on how you pronounce it.
Right.
So that could keep you from falling asleep. But it could also be something that helps you when to prevent you from getting tired during a race as well, having that caffeine. As long as you're thinking about the timing of it for when you do want to go to sleep, that it's not going to be in your system. So it's all really, really playing with the timing of these things. That's important.
That's pretty interesting. And you talked about caffeine being a stimulant. Would you recommend any other kind of either natural sleep aids or other supplements that might be out there, whether holistic or otherwise, for anybody really trying to improve their sleep? And typically, how safe and effective do you feel these are? Are they regulated at all or no?
Unfortunately, supplements are not regulated, so you really want to make sure you're getting it from a trusted source that has like third-party testing. If you have influencers that you listen to that you really trust, that might be a way to go. But that doesn't mean follow anything that you hear on the internet, obviously. You want to make sure it's a trusted source. I get my supplements usually at a nutrition store where I know like the quality tends to be a bit better. So it really depends, where you live and what you have access to. Magnesium is a great supplement for sleep, and most of us are deficient in magnesium anyway. Stress reduces your magnesium, and our soils aren't as nutrient rich as they used to be, so our food doesn't have as much magnesium as it used to. Stress, everything, overexertion of your body can deplete your magnesium. So magnesium glycinate is there's many types of magnesium. Glycinate is one that is known to help with sleep. So usually 350 to 400 milligrams about an hour or so before bed is known to be helpful. Theanine is another supplement that is helpful. You hear about theanine that's in green tea, helps with focus, but it also helps with sleep. It's a precursor to GABA, which is important for sleep. And then there's another supplement that Andrew Huberman, he's a neuroscientist. He's very popular online for like biohackers, and probably many of your athletes might listen to him. And he talks about sleep a lot, and he recommends apigenin, which is not as well known as a supplement, and that's a derivative of chamomile. So chamomile tea can also be helpful. Yeah. But apigenin is really known to be helpful with that overactive mind. So it calms your mind in the evening as well. So that's another, and that I believe is a 50 milligram dose of that, which is usually one pill on a bottle. So that's something. But I think it's really super important that no matter what supplements you're using, what foods you're trying, obviously when you're training, is to really test your tolerance of these things, because everybody's different. All of our physiologies are different, or we might be on different medications or have other circumstances that might impact how these things react with our bodies and minds.
Fantastic. Definitely, I'm going to investigate some of those. And now earlier we talked about the quantity of sleep. We want to make sure we get 7 to 9, somewhere in that range, hours of sleep per night. But also, I want to try to get to the quality of sleep too. I think there are a number of stages that you highlight during the book. There's a deep sleep stage, which was for muscle recovery, which you talked about, which definitely is of interest to us. And then the REM sleep, which I think you said was all, more on the cognitive side. How do we maximize our ability to get quality sleep in addition to the quantity of sleep that we're looking for, generally speaking?
I think it's going to be really all of the things that we've been talking about: the sleep hygiene, having that wind down routine, having that sleep environment optimized for yourself, really thinking about your nutrition, your stress management. These are all going to play into getting that quality sleep. Having that room dark and cool, having comfortable bedding, all the things that we talk about that all plays into those sleep cycles, and making sure that you have the quantity alongside of that to be able to go in and out of those sleep cycles. We tend to have our deep sleep more in the beginning of the sleep cycle, and our REM sleep is more towards the end of the sleep cycle, but it happens all through the night. Yeah. I wear an Oura ring.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Which is a sleep tracker. And it really has been helpful for me because I tell, as you know by my book, I believe in, tracking your sleep, especially if you're trying to figure out why you might be having sleep issues, is to track your sleep quality against those daily habits that we talked about, seeing if you could adjust the timing of those things. But the Oura ring, and then there's the Whoop band, which a lot of athletes use as well, is where, it gives you, it tracks your sleep cycles. So it has an app that goes along with it. So after night's sleep, you could see how was your deep sleep? How was your REM sleep? How many times did you wake up in the night? how long were those awakenings? And then you can start really trying to trace that back to the different habits or things that you might have done the day before or leading up to that might have impacted that. So just paying close attention to those things.
Absolutely. And we'll get into the apps here, hopefully in a minute, because you definitely do that towards the back end of the book. You talk a lot about technology and wearables and other things that can help you kind of manage or see where you're going right or going wrong. So I do want to come back to that. But just on the quality for a minute, there's a debate, I guess, going on right now in the ultra space or in the long endurance space, running or otherwise, about what is the minimum required amount of sleep to get to that deep sleep, the restorative sleep, and the cognitive REM, when you're trying to sleep as short as you can in the middle of a race. And sometimes you're chasing a cutoff, and sometimes you just don't have time to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep in the middle of a race. So I don't know if you have an opinion. There's a lot of people sort of purporting to take dirt naps, these 10-minute naps, and they say, multiple 10-minute naps might get you through. And then other folks say, well, 90 minutes is a complete cycle, so aim for a minimum of 90 minutes, and then maybe you can reset. Do you have an opinion on that? Do you feel like there's any truth or validation in those kind of things? Or are you like, what you need to make sure you get at least X amount of sleep to fully set yourself up for the next day?
Yeah. So I think both of those can be correct, really depending on the individual and the circumstances of the race. So those 10-minute little power naps can be helpful just to kind of rejuvenate, rest your body, rejuvenate physically and mentally, get your energy up. And you won't be in danger of going into that deep sleep yet, because it usually takes about 20 minutes to get into deep sleep. Because if you go too far into deep sleep, it's going to be harder for you to wake up and you're going to feel groggy. So that's where the argument of the 90-minute sleep cycle, which is typical, could come into play. Again, depending on your goals for the race, do you have time to do that? But there's also no guarantees that you're going to set yourself up somewhere and fall asleep, right?
Right, yeah.
So there's no guarantee that, you're going to lay down and all of a sudden the Sandman's going to come and you're going to blissfully go off into your 90-minute sleep, right? So it's really hit or miss. And I think it really depends on the person and then how you plan for that race and what you've done up to that point in training. There's another technique that people could think about, and this would pertain more to those 10-minute cat nap or power naps.
Yeah. And
it's called non-sleep deep rest. And there are different apps. It's on YouTube. There are apps for it. This, again, going back to Andrew Huberman, who I talked about before, he's got a 10-minute session that you can download if you do bring something, your phone or something to listen to. But you can also train yourself to do it. And it's really this progressive relaxation exercise where, you're sitting or laying down, your eyes are closed, and you take deep breaths to relax yourself. And you do this visualization exercise it's almost like a body scan where you're going through your whole body and really paying attention for every finger, every part of your body you're going through slowly.
Right.
And this has been known to almost replicate that 10-minute cat nap. So that could be something to look into as well.
Yeah, I definitely like that idea. Are there any techniques to help us get to sleep quickly when we're lying down? So a lot of, you're in one or other of these boats as a runner. Usually you have planned to sleep at a specific place because they have an actual sleep station there. So you're, okay, I'm going to go until I hit this spot. And I know there's a cot there that they've set up that I can try to sleep on.
Yeah.
So I plan to sleep there regardless of my state at the time that I arrive there. And then there are other folks that just go and go and go and go until they drop and they sleep wherever they're at. Like if it's on a trail or wherever it is, they just go for that. And people kind of get caught between the two.
Yeah.
And so if you're lying there in one of these planned sleep stations and you're just kind of staring at the wall and you can't sleep, it's kind of a waste of time. So you might as well just get up and carry on. But are there any techniques or tricks to help yourself fall to sleep while you're lying there? I mean, I go back to my days as a kid and counting sheep. I don't know if that's a valid technique, but
it could be if it works for you.
Yeah, I mean, whatever works, I suppose. But I don't know if there's anything more scientific than that you might be able to share or know.
Yeah. So there are different things you could try. Well, one, if you are able to have access, I don't know if you have a crew following you or have supplies of some kind. If you have that sleep mask and those headphones to create that darkness could be very helpful.
Right.
And to also, that white noise or those, anything that's going to drown out the extraneous noise can be helpful. So having those headphones and that mask could be helpful at first. But then there's different breath work you could try. There's box breathing, which is, inhaling 4 seconds slowly, hold 4 seconds, exhale 4 seconds, hold 4 seconds. So focusing on your breath and trying to not be in your head or be distracted by the noises around you could be helpful as well. As well as that non-sleep deep rest that we talked about, which is also yoga nidra is what it's called, but you're not, it's more of a meditation and you're not like doing sun salutations or anything like that. It's not that kind of yoga.
Yeah.
So those are things that I would recommend that could be helpful for that. Or, counting sheep, if that's.
Or counting sheep. Yes. There aren't many sheep where we live in Texas, but there are where I came from in England.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah. It's visualization, visualizing yourself, on a beach, by the water, whatever is a relaxing scenario for you that you can visualize. Meditation is also something that is super helpful for that. And not necessarily only when you're trying to fall asleep, but having a regular meditation practice. For me, how that's been helpful is I think of it as brain training and learning how to focus on your breath and let thoughts just pass and not getting drawn in down the rabbit hole of your thoughts and getting your anxiety up, which is certainly not going to help you fall asleep, is very helpful. So I've been able, through a regular meditation practice, particularly if I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't get back to sleep, if my mind turns on, I'm able to get back to sleep because I don't get caught up in my brain.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, not just for being able to sleep, but folks, if you're in the middle of a race too, the ability to kind of have a strong mindset, to relax, remain calm, you then are more inclined to think clearly and problem solve, because we have problems all day long out on the trail. So I just think that's those breathing techniques in the book were tremendous. I know I was trying the 4-7-8 technique from the book, trying that out, and it's amazing how these things work.
Yeah, I know it is. It's so simple, but you think, oh, that's not going to work,
right? But it does. It really does.
It does. You have to try. There's so many different things you could try. It's just experimenting on what works for you. And, while you're training is probably the best time to do that. So you have it, ready to go. And then you custom your brain and your body to those things as well, where it'll respond better.
Yeah. I love generally speaking, training or not, I love the idea of remaining calm, relaxed, and sort of present cognitively. I think is a great thing for a living life and for running races. Yeah. So generally speaking, I was a fan of those breathing pieces of the book.
Good. I'm glad that worked for you.
For sure. The other thing, I know I wanted to come back to this, the apps. So there's an app for everything these days. And in the book, in one of the chapters there towards the end, I think you get into some of the apps that are out there and available to help sleep and to track sleep. You talked about the Oura
ring.
Yes, Oura ring. And I know I have a Garmin watch that has heart rate stuff that tracks sleep overnight and so on. But what else is out there? What other apps would you recommend that people go look for and try out to help with sleep and to help kind of manage sleep? Yeah.
So there's a sleep app, and the name escapes me. I can get it to you for the show notes. I probably talked about it in the book, but I don't know how it does it, but you put I think it goes by your breathing. So if you don't have a device, it does help track your sleep, and it can kind of tell when you're sleeping and when you wake up, where you can track that as well. But, the Oura Ring, Garmin, the Whoop strap, Fitbit, there are lots of devices out there, that sleep trackers that have apps that go with them. What I like about the Oura Ring is I tend to sleep on my wrist. Like, I put my hand up, so having something on my wrist is disruptive to my sleep, where the ring kind of is not getting in the way for me of that. But yeah, that's just me. Everybody's different. We talked about the meditation and the breathing. There's all kinds of apps out there for that. So I like the Calm app.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And on there you have all kinds of meditations. They have a free, I think it's like a 10-day meditation to try out. And then there is a subscription cost to the app. But on there you have just about everything you need. You have all the different sounds, the binaural beats, the different color, white, pink, brown, green noises on there. Nature sounds. There's sleep stories. You can listen to Matthew McConaughey tell you a bedtime story.
My wife would love that one for sure. Yeah. I'm sure she would like that.
The breath work, all of that's on there. And there are other ones as well. So all kinds of sleep apps and meditation apps and sound apps like that. We talked about the sleep masks, the weighted masks, the supplements. There's different teas, that I have in my sleep toolbox, the chamomile tea, sleepy time tea. You have to be careful of those in case you have one that wakes in the middle of the night and has to go to the bathroom. You don't want to be,
yes.
Having those teas too close to bedtime. The blue light blocking glasses, that's been a lifesaver for me. I swear by those. As soon as I put them on, I feel myself getting drowsy. But you have to really make sure there's so many of them now online, and some of them aren't the quality that you want. So, you want to make sure that they have the right, amount of blue light blocking capabilities that's going to actually work for you.
Is there a particular brand that are pretty solid in that space, or you've tried and feel like, these are better than most?
Yes, I use Blue Block.
Okay.
And I believe it's Blue and then BLOK.
Okay.
Blue Block.
Yeah. I'm fascinated by this concept of the blue light blocking glasses, because I'd not heard of that before I started reading the book. And I think it's mentioned a couple of times in a variety of spots in the book. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting. I've never heard of that. And myself and my wife were on the phone, as most people are, quite a bit, especially coming up to nighttime. So I'm going to go. Yeah. I'm going to go look for some of those, I think.
Yeah. There's another gadget that could be helpful, particularly if you get up in the morning and you're training very early and it's still dark outside, because it's really that light that we begin to wake up. And so there are light boxes that can emulate the sunlight. So I use a Philips Go light in the morning, because I live in Michigan. I get up at 5 in the morning. It's still dark. And especially if you're trying to begin to set a circadian rhythm to have like a regular time that you get up in the morning and you go to bed at night. Having that light box on for about 10, 15 minutes when you wake in the morning could also be very helpful to start waking your body up to get ready for the day.
That might be super useful if we have a crew out in the middle of a race and it's very dark out somewhere. It might be really useful to have a light box handy. I don't know how big or small they are, but theoretically that could be quite useful.
They're definitely portable. They probably come in different sizes. You do need power for most of them. There might be ones that, mine's so old, who knows? But there's also glasses for that as well. They have the blue light on like the top part of the glasses, and it doesn't shine directly in your eye, but it goes through, I guess, your eyelid skin to the back of your eye, which could be a handy tool to have as well.
Wow.
If you don't have access to the light box.
So that seems sort of like the reverse of the blocking glasses. It's sort of putting it in instead of pulling it out. It's kind of fun. I like that we have both ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we talked a lot about pre-race and training in advance of racing, and then during the race itself, we've got some tips on how we might stay awake if we have to stay awake during a race, or sleep if we have to sleep. But how about after a race? Is there a preferred approach? Is there too much sleep we can get after a race when recovering from an ultra? Is there an approach that we might take, or is it just get as much sleep as you possibly can once you're done?
Yeah, I think the week or so after, you just have to listen to your body.
Yeah.
You really put your body through the ringer, and sleep is that's when everything happens, right? That's when the recovery happens. It's during sleep. We've said a number of times, that's where everything gets regenerated. Our immune systems as well. It's really important. Sleep's important. So, if you're really training really hard and running 100 plus miles, it could really do a job on your immune system. So getting that quality sleep, enough sleep to regenerate that is going to be super important.
Yeah.
You don't want to, you want to try to stay as close as possible, because you want to get back into a regular sleep rhythm. You want to keep that. That's something that when you start training again for the next thing, or just kicking butt in life, you need to have that quality sleep on a regular basis. So you don't want to be doing it for too long, where you're taking long naps, during the day. It's going to interfere with that sleep, where you find it hard to get back on a regular sleep schedule. But definitely listen to your body.
Yeah. So, and if I'm paraphrasing, it take enough sleep to get you back into your regular rhythm, but not too much sleep, because then that's going to throw you out again, and that's no good. If you need a nap or two to get you back to your 7 to 9 hours at the regular sleep time, that's okay, but not multiple 12-hour sleep marathons after the fact, unless that's what you need, unless that's what your body needs to get you back into the 7 and 9 at the right time.
Yeah, I looked up, I read a study in preparation for this about sleep deprivation as it relates to athletic performance. So I'll read you some of the stats there. The study showed that less than 6 hours of sleep on a regular basis reduces time to physical exertion 10 to 30%.
Wow.
Decreases aerobic output, decreases sustained muscle strength, and has a marked impairment in cardiovascular, metabolic, and respiratory capabilities. So if you're a high-performing athlete and you're out there, the sleep is going to be so important to all of that, as well as just cognitively, because it's such a mental. Yeah.
It's a really interesting part of the growth of ultra running, because it's not a new sport, but what's happening now is that it's progressing into these 200-mile races, 300-mile races, which take place over where it used to be 100 miles, which is over one night essentially. And we can kind of figure out what we're doing for one night. But when you go multiple nights in a row, people are trying to apply the same kind of theories of the one night 100 mile into a 4 or 5 night 200 or 300 mile race. And so they're coming a bit unstuck, because the sleep planning, which is why I love talking to you here on the show. I think for those longer races, the aspect of sleep becomes really, really important, because if you aren't getting enough, certainly early on, you're going to really struggle, if not fail, on your 3rd, 4th, or 5th night.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you just haven't got enough. And so I think putting sleep as a major part of your planning or your strategy for how you're going to complete this race, it needs to be in there. And I'm not sure, really, the jury is still out on how much, when to sleep. Do I sleep? Do I plan my sleep? Do I just sleep when I'm tired? Or how much sleep do I need? The jury is really out on that right now. And people are still figuring this out, because there's no guidebook for doing this, really. And so it's fascinating to hear some of in a normal world, this is kind of what we would do, and then try to take some of that and apply it into these 3, 4, 5 day night races that we're trying to accomplish, and figure out how on earth do you figure out your sleep without completely wrecking yourself somewhere along the lines. I just think, it's a really interesting area of study that I don't know that there's been a whole lot of sort of scientific study on this. It's really anecdotal, and it's people doing their thing, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. People copy that, but it doesn't work for them, and they try something else, or it just doesn't work at all, and we're all still figuring it out. So
Yeah.
I think sleep is becoming really important in this ultra world that the listeners and I are in, because the further we go, and especially for people like me at the back of the pack, the elite runners are running through, and they have teams behind them, and they have a crew and a space that they can go and sleep in, and which is a predefined environment in the back of a car, or it's all set up nicely for them. But folks like me, we're slow as heck, and we're out there for a lot longer. And so I think it's really important that we consider sleep and the benefits and challenges of not having sleep as part of our overall planning for these races. So I'm super thrilled that we get to chat with you, because I mean, the jury's really out. I don't know that there's a proper methodology developed yet for how this all works. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think it's just hard because it's so bio-individual. It's like you said, it's what works for one person may not work for the other. And sometimes you just don't know what the circumstances are going to be. You just, But your comment about front loading in those circumstances and making sure you have as much sleep as possible in the beginning, probably a good idea.
Definitely a good start. Where you go from there is in the air, but that's probably the best place to start, I would think. Yes, bank a bunch of sleep in advance as much as you can. Now, Amanda, one other thing we like to do here on the show is have guests choose a song that they would like to add to the free Spotify Choose to Endure playlist. Something family-friendly. Maybe it lifts you up, motivates you, or just keeps you moving while you might be out on the trail. Now, you picked a song, I think, Amanda, if I recall correctly. Which song did you choose, and why did that one jump out to you specifically?
So I don't remember what I chose, but I'll tell you what I'm thinking now, and we'll see if it's the same.
Hey,
I would have to go from the theme from Rocky 1.
Brilliant. That is the one you chose, so well done. You doubled down on it. Well done, yes. Why that one? Why does that one stand out?
Well, you know what? That is one of my favorite movies. I've seen it probably 50 times, if not more. I saw it when it came out in the movies, so I guess I'm giving away my age, back in the 70s in the movie theater. And I just love it. And when Rocky is training and that song comes on, it's just, you get so excited watching the movie. At least I do. When I hear that song during the movie, I feel like I can get up and go outside and just start running.
Absolutely. Those trumpets, right? I think it's trumpets that they kickstart it with.
It's great.
And you just get the visual of him being chased down the street by those kids when he's running along in that gray, whatever he's wearing.
Yeah, that sweatsuit. Yeah, exactly.
Sweatshirt and short. Yeah, absolute classic endurance tune and classic tune to lift you up. So I thoroughly appreciate you picking that one. I'll be glad to add that to the playlist. That one, like you, gives me chills. I'm a big fan of the Rocky series, although not Rocky 5. That one wasn't super great.
No.
But the original Rockies are really excellent. We will definitely add that so that folks can enjoy it as much as we do.
And that might help to keep you awake and alert through those long runs.
There you go. Absolutely. Anything that gives us that adrenaline rush, right? Anything that peps us up a little bit. Yes. Brilliant. Well, as we wrap up today's really insightful conversation, I want to thank Amanda for sharing your knowledge and experience on the critical role of sleep in enhancing athletic performance, especially for our community of ultra runners. We've covered all sorts, from adjusting sleep schedules for night races, managing sleep amidst busy schedules, the impact of nutrition on sleep quality, and Amanda's strategies from her book, Relax, Sleep, Thrive, have given us actionable advice on optimizing our sleep environments, utilizing technology for sleep assistance, and employing mental and breathing techniques to improve our sleep health and maybe even given us some ideas for how to stave off sleep when we're actively trying to go through the night and stay alert by doing the things she doesn't recommend. These insights are not just theoretical, they are practical tools that can transform how we approach sleep for better training, racing, and recovery, especially if you follow the daily worksheets that are in the book. Remember, optimizing your sleep is just as crucial as your physical training. I think if you implement even a few of the strategies that we've discussed today, it could make a really significant difference in your performance and your overall well-being. You can find more information about Amanda, her book, and her methodologies at amandachocko.com. And you can also follow her on Instagram. If you visit relaxsleepthrive.com, I think you can download your own sleep toolbox guide, correct, Amanda, as well?
Yes. Well, that's the link through the book, which you can certainly share that. But it says that on my website, I've got designing your perfect wind down routine. So you can put both of those links on there.
Yes, wonderful. So I will, of course, provide the links for those in the show notes if you want to go check them out and learn more. Absolutely, please do. While you're on the internet searching for those, don't forget to subscribe to this show to get notified each time a new episode comes out. And of course, follow, share, and like. It is always very much appreciated. Doing any of those things really helps with the algorithms out there, which in turn help get the word out and increase the chances of other runners finding the information that fantastic guests like Amanda have given up their time to come and share with us. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and over at choosetoendure.com, so be sure to head over to any of those spots. Check us out, say hello, drop us a message, or suggest a topic if you have a moment. I really love getting all of those interactions. Until then, sleep long to run strong and keep actively choosing to endure.